A reflection for the third Sunday of Advent. Not long to go now, just 11 days until Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. Still plenty of time for me to hear though, again the Christmas song Little Donkey or the hymn Away in a Manger, as children and parents alike picture the scenes of the Nativity in Christmases past and present. Today's reflection helps us to appreciate the wonder of the Nativity story, because over the years perhaps the story has become so full of excitement and happiness as the greatest gift is awaited, that perhaps some of the reality of why and how it is so very wonderful have been lost. About this time, Joseph would have received some kind of notification that he must go to Bethlehem to register. And so a newly engaged couple are forced to register for a census in a town far away. The woman is not much more than a child. Some historians and theologians believe her to be around 14 or 15 years old. And she is 9 months pregnant. When they finally reach their destination after an arduous journey, there is no place to stay. And so this young girl gives birth in a stable. The world of Mary and Joseph was a difficult and dangerous place, one whose harsh conditions are not fully described in the Gospel accounts of the Bible. Perhaps the writers of the Gospels of Matthew and Luke assume the reader would know what it was like. We don't know. So it is fair to say most people today have no idea how dangerous and difficult that journey to Bethlehem was. Joseph and Mary's hardships would have begun more than a week before the birth of their son, when the couple had to leave their home in Nazareth in the northern highlands of Galilee to register for a Roman census. They had to travel 90 miles to the city of Joseph's ancestors, south along the flatlands of the Jordan River, then west over the hills surrounding Jerusalem and on into Bethlehem. It was a grueling trip for anyone, let alone a young girl so near her time to give birth. The journey was very much uphill and downhill. It was not simple, and estimates are they would have only travelled about 10 miles a day because of the difficulty of the route and because of Mary's impending delivery of her child. The journey through the Judean desert would have taken place during the winter. Temperatures reaching 30 degrees plus during the day and often refreshed with rain like stair rods. But night times in contrast would see temperatures drop rapidly to near freezing. To protect themselves during the inclement weather, Mary and Joseph would likely have worn heavy woolen cloaks constructed to shed rain and snow. Under their cloaks, they most likely wore long robes belted at the waist. Tube-like socks and enclosed shoes protected the feet. Heavy clothes in the heat to protect against the cold of the night. They would have been sweating and exhausted during the day, and huddled to retain warmth during the night. The unpaved, hilly trails and harsh weather were not the only hazards Joseph and Mary would have faced on their journey south. One of the most terrifying dangers in ancient Palestine was the heavily forested valley of the Jordan River. Lions and bears lived in the woods, and travellers had to fend off wild boars. Archaeologists have unearthed documents warning travellers to the forest's dangers. Bandits, pirates of the desert, and robbers, which were all common hazards along the major routes to Bethlehem. The threat of outlaws often formed solitary travellers to join trade caravans for protection. Mary and Joseph also had to take with them their own provisions. In wineskins they carried water. They carried a lot of bread. Breakfast would be dried bread. Lunch would be oil with bread, and herbs with oil and bread in the evening. Such a weight for the little donkey to carry. The hardships did not end when Joseph and Mary arrived in Bethlehem. Under normal circumstances, the pair would have expected to stay in a spare bedroom of a relative or another Jewish family. But it is thought Mary's condition preceded their arrival, and many turned them away. And then an overcrowded Bethlehem would have forced Joseph and Mary to seek lodging at a primitive inn. It is widely agreed that Jesus was born in a cave used for housing animals, not a wooden stable full of cattle and sheep. It is fact that common pictures of Joseph, Mary, and the newborn Jesus, surrounded by a menagerie of camels, oxen, cows, chicken, pheasants, and even peacocks, is more for our benefit than of fact. The stable was part of the inn. The only animals likely to be found there would have been donkeys used for travel, perhaps a few sheep. The cave may have provided some protection from the harsh weather and the noise and the dirt of the journey. Conditions under which Jesus was born would have made the event anything but warm and wonderful and sweet and comfortable. It would have been stinking, damp and cold. And yet here, the God of all, God the Son, was born to a human woman and in poverty and humility, born to live amongst his people as one of the people. Over the next few days, when you hear the hymn, Little Donkey, perhaps you might reflect and try to imagine the reality of the hazardous conditions, the danger, and the length of the journey and the time it took to reach Bethlehem. Next time you hear the hymn, Away in a Manger, think of the reality of the scene, the stench, the dirt, the freezing conditions, and a young girl just having given birth. And then wonder at the love of God. For God so loved the world he chose to come and be amongst his people, not arriving in splendour with fanfare, seeking to be served, but in humility and quietly to just a few, to serve all of us. And that includes you. God bless you. Happy Advent.